Welcome to Race to Win, the sailing podcast where we use 3D replays of actual races to discuss strategies, racing tactics, and more. This is the final podcast in a 4-part series going over what we can learn using GeoVids with a view from the top of the mast. If you're new to the series, you're going to want to go back and start with the first one that explains exactly how we make this video that you're seeing here. Basically, we've just taken a GoPro and screwed it directly into the mainsail headboard. Then we take that video footage and we sync it with a 3D replay using the RaceQ's GeoVids program to get these really amazing videos that we can use to analyze our performance in a unique way. At the end of the last series, we talked about the mainsail draft depth and draft position and how that affected your trim and speed. So now we're going to move a little bit forward on the boat and talk about the same parameters on the jib. The first thing that's super obvious is the headstay sag. We have a very clear view of how much headstay sag you have. Now that's controlled by the backstay. It's really your powering and depowering tool. If you need more power, slacken the backstay. It really drastically changes the draft and shape of the jib. And it's really the only way to control the draft on the jib is by changing your headstay sag. It really improves your pointing ability, but less power for acceleration to have that nice flat jib. The amount of draft you want on the jib is usually between 10 and 17%, again controlled mostly by the headstay. On the bottom section though, it will be controlled by the sheet tension and car position. Now that you can find draft depth, let's look at the draft position. This is controlled by the jib halyard tension. The tighter tension you have on your halyard, that's going to move your draft forward and give you a wider groove to steer in. For beginning drivers, you are going to want a tight tension to give yourself a little bit more room for error. You'll lose a bit of pointing ability, but overall you're going to go faster because you'll be controlling your boat a little better. And your draft position should be at about 30 to 40% if your jib is cut correctly. Most people know how to fly the jib telltales, so just know that you can see them from the top and again evaluate your trim versus your speed using the GeoVid. And then the last thing you can see from up here is the car position. If you move the car aft, you're going to get more twist by opening up the leech, which is going to give you more acceleration but a little less pointing ability. And again, you can measure the twist by looking at the leech of the jib against the spreader. Generally, if you move the car forward, you're going to close the leech. By the way, if you don't adjust your sheet tension and just move the car around, you probably won't get the result that you're looking for. You need to look at the twist on the spreader and adjust things accordingly. You might need more or less sheet tension. The point is to see how you were doing at this view from the top and then adjust it to that parameter. And we'll discuss how this all affects your performance later on. But I think that's enough for one podcast, and you can see some more things that this view from the top really gives you the opportunity to evaluate. Again, the general point is keep making these videos, and then you develop a catalog of them over time. You can see how the sails were trimmed when you did poorly, how the sails were trimmed when you were doing well, and begin to learn the trim that works well for you on your boat and your crew in varying conditions. And that's the kind of thing that's really going to help you improve at the higher levels of sailing. That's all for today. See you next time. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more on our website, www.raceqs.com/podcast, or search for RaceQs on iTunes and click subscribe.